All right. So some of you, actually quite a few of you, were at the retreat in New York a week or so ago, and we touched upon this a little bit. So I wanted to expand upon it. So the question was, how do we work with the yamas and niyamas, or how do we work with those 16 qualities or so that are listed, or they're not 16, there's quite a bit more than that, I believe, but it's chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, the beginning of it, the qualities that are the divine manifestation of our personalities. How do we work with those? Okay, this is one way to consider it, and I need to give a little bit of background first. I was recently reading a book, it's Kriya Yoga. It's a very thick book. I'll have to go back and find it, but I believe it was written by Swami Satyananda, who is a Kriya Yoga teacher, not in this particular lineage, but a Kriya Yoga teacher nonetheless. And there was a discussion there on mental health and mental well-being, psychological health. And in a sense, one of the things that he was implying or saying was that if you were psychologically and if you were psychologically and mentally healthy, you would probably be spiritually aware and awake. He went on to say, if you experience things like anxiety or depression or fears and phobias or other mental health issues, that is something that needs to be addressed and worked on. Now, he wasn't saying that things like anger and sadness were wrong. He was saying that they are appropriate when the situation is appropriate. But when you find that you have this constant theme or thread of sadness or anger or anxiety or you name it, and it's not based on what's going on around you, it's not like a situational thing, then that tends to indicate that there is a mental or emotional or psychological disturbance that needs to be cleared up. But he also went on to say that that's not a judgment, because if you're a human being, you probably have those things. Everyone probably has them. And that what yoga does, what yoga gives the capacity to do, is to create the space to pluck those out of your consciousness. And again, this is why I put so much emphasis on working with a counselor or working with someone who can attend to these things. Because in the beginning of this book, which I love, which ties so much into what we've been discussing in these last few videos and classes and our retreat, is he said, what yoga does in the beginning is it kind of assumes that you are already at a place where you are mostly calm and relaxed inside. When you are already at a place where your body is physically strong enough and your mind is alert enough to be able to pay attention to what's going on subtly with the practices of yoga. And again, this doesn't mean that meditation and yoga are bad if you don't have all that worked out, because the practices themselves are wonderful for your body, for stress relief and so on. But yoga, the real stuff, I mean, the stuff that gives the depth of perception to higher realms, and the stuff that Sri Yukteswar understood through his exploration of Samkhya philosophy and the holy science, to perceive that, to feel that, to experience that, to understand that, requires a depth of openness and a depth of expansion of consciousness that is not possible if we're all contracted down by depression, anxiety, fear, again, any host of issues that you might have. So he starts out by saying that for yoga to work in the profound way that we really want it to, there has to be some basic premise of calmness and relaxation already. And then he goes on to say in some of these chapters that there are ways of recognizing and neutralizing these mental, emotional, and psychological issues. Now, he didn't get into it as detailed as probably could have been, because this book was written a long time ago and we probably didn't have the same understanding of resiliency and working through traumas and so on. But his general idea was on point with what we've been discussing. And that is this. So number one, at the retreat in New York, one of the things I said is, if you want to know how mentally, emotionally, and psychologically balanced you are, all you need to do is go through the yamas and niyamas: harmlessness, truthfulness, non-stealing, non-attachment, contentment, purity, brahmacharya, surrender in God. All you have to do is start with those and then ask yourself, can I do that? Can I do that? And if you can, no problem. If there's something that prevents you, says, yeah, but sometimes I have to lie. Sometimes I can't be harmless. Sometimes, if you've got this catch, like I can, but sometimes I can't. Well, that's an indication of where you need to work yogically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Because for a yogi, they're able to do that all the time once they've worked it out. You're still a yogi when you're working it out, but the accomplished yogi doesn't say, should I lie now or should I tell the truth now? Truthfulness is just what is there all the time. And we know that this is important. I'm stressing this because in the Yoga Sutras, there's the statement that the yamas and niyamas are the great vow, meaning once you begin yoga, then you are essentially taking the vow that you are going to live those things, do those things. That is your vow. Just like when you take a vow to marry someone, you're going to take care of them for better or for worse. You're not going to cheat on them. You're going to be kind to them. You're not going to be cruel. All the things that are important to make a marriage work. You don't just say, well, is it okay to break that vow this time? No, it's not okay to break the vows. If you make a mistake, then you ask for forgiveness and you grow and you strengthen it. But it's not okay to consciously break that vow. Yes, you are all yogis. That was a question that just popped up. So there's the idea that it is the great vow. But then it goes on to say, not very far past the yamas and niyamas, that these are applicable no matter time, space, circumstance, caste, creed. They are applicable no matter what. So it is stated in the Yoga Sutras that these are not suggestions. These are the important things that while you are becoming, you are yogis now, but while you are becoming what we could say is an accomplished yogi, you are to work on those at all times. And again, if you want to know mentally, emotionally, psychologically, what do you need to work on to be healthy from the yogic standpoint? You ask yourself, okay, can I be content? Can I be content? And if the answer is no, well, then now you have to explore, why can't I be content? And it is your duty to figure that out. And maybe you can do it on your own. Maybe you can do it on your own. And that's great if you can. But maybe you need help. Again, as I've said before, I've been at meditation, Kriya yoga for 20, 21 years now. I have been extremely focused on it, but I've also been involved in counseling and therapy for that amount of time because I know that the mind is profoundly tricky and I need someone else to either confirm that I'm on the right path or to someone I trust to confirm I'm on the right path or to help me navigate situations that might be too sticky for me to figure out. And I've got to say the combination between doing the inner work and working with a skilled counselor is just beautiful. I mean, I love it when I meet with my counselor and I say, all right, here's what I'm working on. And I throw it out there. And she helps me dig through the maze, the labyrinth of my own self-defeating qualities. And we just pluck it right out. And I feel freer afterwards. So many people avoid this. Many people don't take it seriously. Why? Because it is hard work. It takes time. It takes perseverance. So this is one of the ways that we can address the yamas and niyamas is by looking at them and saying, am I capable of doing this? And if you are not capable of doing it, then you have to start journaling. You have to start contemplating. You have to start brainstorming. You have to start figuring out, what do I need to do so that I eventually become good at that? Truthfulness has always been profoundly important to me. So while I deeply value the truth, and even now it's probably my favorite of the virtues because I see the power behind it and the ability to help us through our practice, it took a long time for me to work through the ability to trust that I could simply say the truth, that without, getting the whole familial issues coming up, that I could listen to other people's truths without judgment. I had to work very hard on that. But now I feel very good about my capacity to speak, to understand, to listen, to even try to hear the truth. Even if I don't believe someone, I will listen to see, is there something in there that might be true, that will help me understand where they're coming from. So one of the reasons that this is not emphasized in the yoga community is because it is hard work. But that is also why there are so few truly accomplished yogis versus all the people who are trying real hard. It's not difficult, but it does require having to get over your little self-defense mechanism so that you can admit truth is important, harmlessness is important, contentment is important, purity is important, and it becomes joyful for you. So in the beginning, yes, you have to kind of use your willpower to try to make it so, but eventually there comes a point to where it just feels wrong not to be truthful, or it just feels wrong to commit harm to someone. I'm no stranger to violence. I used to get in fights all the time. I've had my nose broke. I've been knocked out. I can get very verbally aggressive if someone makes me angry. But over the years of practicing yoga, that doesn't feel right to me at all anymore. So these things change you as you go. Now, the other side of this, we've discussed how to look into the yamas and niyamas and also those qualities in chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. But here's how you can do it in a more manageable way. Hopefully it's more manageable. Where you start is just begin paying attention to what bothers you. Meaning just start right now and even notice, like, how do you feel inside? Do you feel content? Are you comfortable? I mean, no one's expecting anything of you right here other than we just participate together and listen. Is there a sense of, yeah, I'm good here. I enjoy this. Okay, nothing to worry about right now. But let's say you go into your day or your work. Obviously, you're not doing that today because you're on retreat. But let's say you go into your day and your spouse does something, or you hear something on the news, and it triggers a feeling of fear or anger or anxiety. All right, bam, there it is, right in front of you. You have now been given the opportunity to wonder, why can't I be content right now? What is troubling me psychologically about the situation that's going on? Now, again, this is only necessary, or this is only useful if what's happening really isn't a problem. So that's, again, why a counselor is useful, because they help you see through, are you being abused? And that's, of course, why you feel terrible. Or are you reliving some kind of program that you got from childhood and you're projecting it onto your spouse? Through going through the process of meditation and yoga and exploring these things, you are making yourself stronger to face those realities. You're making yourself stronger to face whatever's getting in the way of your expression of all these virtues that we've talked about. And the virtues are natural to us. If we didn't have all these psychological complexes and quirks and idiosyncrasies, we would naturally be fearless. We would naturally be free of malice and anger. Now, again, it's okay to be angry if something happens right then, but then you let it pass. You get punched in the face, maybe it's all right to be angry for a few minutes. But if you hold on to it for years, then we know it's an issue. So the long and short, the roundabout way of answering the question that you asked is simply, yes, it is overwhelming. It can be. But if you take it moment by moment and realizing that there might be big themes, meaning there might be giant themes that are tied to a whole bunch of stuff, and you just chip away at it a little at a time, then eventually as the years go by, that theme will crumble, or you'll have a realization. Then it will be natural for you to be fearless. It will be natural for you to let anger pass. And I've seen this with so many students. One student in particular, he was a profoundly violent person, and he was in with some very bad crowds. I mean, I'm talking turn your stomach kind of stuff. And when he reflects back over the years of his practice and his attention to this work, he feels like a totally different person. And people have even said to him, they couldn't imagine, someone said this to him recently, and I was in the area when this happened. They said, we couldn't imagine you having a crossword with anyone. And he just felt so empowered by having someone tell him that when he thought about his past, when he thought about how he would react and respond to different things. So for him, that was a confirmation of how all of this work, this process was changing him. And he wasn't even engaged in deep psychotherapy. He wasn't engaged as intensely as even what I'm trying to encourage you to do. He was just doing the practices, doing his best, saying, okay, today I'm going to try to keep my temper under control, or today I'm going to try to be more calm and content. He was just a little bit at a time trying to develop and cultivate these things. And over the course of not many years at all, I mean, it's only been maybe four years of Kriya yoga practice, he has mentioned how he is radically different. Jenny, does this answer your question? Okay, great. So consider all this, and these are big things. These are not these discussions. I'm not talking about them or bringing them up with any idea that you're just going to knock it out of the park in the next 3 weeks. You're just going to sit down, but yeah, sure. I'm going to work on this. This is why your life is your Kriya yoga process. This is why your life is your Kriya yoga process, because this stuff keeps going. Even in the Yoga Sutras, there's a statement towards the end that essentially says, even an accomplished yogi, sometimes he will hit points or stages of meditation, and stuff will come up. Why? You've heard me talk about this before, because the more you meditate, you are releasing all this attachments to confusion. And sometimes it's easy. It just goes away, and it just happens, by going to a retreat or hearing a certain word or being in the presence of someone that you respect. And it's clearing it out. And so you're getting more and more and more space in your consciousness, in your chitta. The grooves are being smoothed out. But then as the consciousness expands, as you go further and further, well, maybe way out there on the periphery is a profound issue that you've never even looked at, dealt with, can believe is even something for you to face, and you hit it. But you've been in such a blissful state, you've been in such a calm state with your yoga for years. Now you feel like you've gone back, 20 years. And it's not that you have gone backwards anywhere. It's that you just simply have expanded so far that now you're hitting the bigger stuff, the stuff that was so hidden under the morass of the other things, that it's there. So I'm telling you that so you recognize that this is something that continues and proceeds. And even though you get clear, you get more distance, and you get a better capacity to recognize what needs to be done and how to let things go. So the other side of it, or the further down the line, is that even though there are still things for you to deal with, you recognize that you can, like you recognize the skill that you have. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Get it out. You just flick it with your finger and it goes away. Whereas 15 years earlier, maybe you were so confused and you had to go to the counselor and you had to do your EFT tapping, then you had to get a massage, then you had to think about it, then you had to have a breakdown. And you're like, oh, there it is. Well, that process gets quicker and quicker and quicker. It's just continues.